My apologies for not putting out a review last week. I recorded one for Last Breath, but for some reason never got around to uploading it, so I'm going to tack that review onto the end of my Mickey 17 review today. That's 2 reviews in one video. The grind never stops. That is, unless, of course, you forget to do your job. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
Mickey 17 follows a disposable employee who is sent on a human expedition to colonize an ice planet. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated with most of his memories intact. Okay, first off, I want to just say that there is a lot going on in this movie. Almost too much, if I'm being brutally honest. This is director Bong Joon-Ho's much-anticipated follow-up to his Oscar-winning, critically acclaimed film, Parasite. A movie that I enjoyed, but if I'm being 100% transparent, I enjoyed his work on Snowpiercer much more. Now, I know I might be in the minority there, but Snowpiercer was just such a memorable and unique experience the first time I watched it. And in a lot of ways, I think Mickey 17 is a spiritual successor to Snowpiercer. Mickey 17 has a lot of lofty ideas and concepts contained within it, all set against this backdrop of interplanetary colonization. And I do think that they do a really decent job of setting this world up, either through flashbacks or through dialogue.
I like it a lot.
A little bit of world building goes a long way to helping you get lost in the story they are trying to tell, and I think Mickey 17 did that. This movie is asking a lot of questions, a lot of morally heavy questions, as they put the main character through the ringer. He is basically being treated as this human lab rat. Go out on this planet that we've never been on before without your helmet on and see what happens. Or we're going to send you out in space and see how quickly the radiation kills you. I mean, he basically signed up for all this, albeit under duress and out of desperation. But the question is, how does it make him feel as a person to be constantly looked at as expendable? What does it feel like to go into any situation knowing that there is a high probability that you are going to die? In fact, it's almost a certainty. It actually becomes a running gag throughout the film because every character that he comes in contact with wants to know what it's like to die. It's pretty heavy stuff, actually, and it's all being told through the lens of comedy. And in a lot of ways, this film should be looked at as a satire. This just so happens to also be where this movie lost me just a little bit. It seems like most of these characters are meant to be these over-the-top caricatures instead of actual real people. And it's pretty much up to the audience as to whether or not they can accept that. I personally found it to be a little bit distracting, and Mark Ruffalo's character is probably the most obvious example. He plays this kind of eccentric political extremist, you know the type, who I think is supposed to be an exaggeration of a few different real-life people that you can probably guess who they're trying to talk about.
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you stay?
All of that is kind of mixed with this typical cliche rich guy who wants to take over something and rebuild it in his image. And I get it, the character is supposed to be obnoxious, and if we're being honest with ourselves, Mark Ruffalo can be obnoxious even when he's not playing a character. So needless to say, it was very easy to dislike him in this movie. I just found his presentation to be a little bit too goofy. This movie also stars Robert Pattinson in the lead role. And make no mistake about it, Robert Pattinson is a very talented actor. But apparently for this role, he went to the Tom Hardy School of Weird Voices when it came to his performance. Now, I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way. I think Tom and Rob are both very talented. But again, in this movie, that approach was kind of distracting. He's supposed to be playing this bumbling idiot that we as the audience are meant to feel sorry for. I get all of that. But again, his performance was just a little bit over the top, to the point that he didn't feel like an actual person. In fact, if everyone in the movie just toned things down a little bit with their performance, I think it would have went a long way to not making it feel tonally unbalanced throughout. My favorite part of the movie, believe it or not, had to do with this subplot of sorts that has to deal with these creatures that were already on the planet before the humans got there. Now, I did feel like the message of invasion and the humans being the real aliens in this situation was a bit on the nose. I mean, that's actually a line of dialogue in the movie, rather than letting the audience come to that conclusion on their own.
Message!
But even as random as it is, I still found the whole concept of including these creatures to be quite refreshing, and it actually added a level of heart to the film that I think did it some good. Another thing that bothered me a little bit about this movie, and it was something that I alluded to just a few moments ago, was the dialogue. Some of it was very rich with meaning and quite insightful, while other times, mostly during the comedic parts, it felt a bit more clunky and out of place. When you have a movie presenting ideas like what it means to be a human, or the dangers of unchecked power, again, that's pretty heavy material, and I don't know if the tone of the film and that subject matter always jived to me in the way that it should have.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Bottom line, I think Mickey 17 is an ambitious movie with a lot to offer, but I think the execution of some aspects of it left a lot to be desired. The acting ranges from completely absurd to heartfelt and powerful, and again, I think that contributes to some of the awkward tonal shifts. Some of the messaging in the film was a bit too on the nose, to the point where it feels like it has absolutely no faith in its audience to come to the conclusion on their own. I do have to give them credit for crafting something that is mostly an original concept, even if I did see elements of The Sixth Day in here quite a bit. At the end of the day, Mickey 17 was kind of a mixed bag for me. It was enjoyable to an extent, but it left me feeling unfulfilled in other areas. And that is precisely why I'm going to give it the Cathouse.
Saved by kitty litter.
A survival story based on a true story, putting regular people in extraordinary situations, will never not be entertaining. Let this be a lesson to upcoming filmmakers out there. Original ideas will always be welcome and even encouraged. But true stories, when executed properly, offer cinematic experiences that oftentimes can exceed the audience's expectations. Last Breath is the true story of seasoned deep-sea divers who battle the raging elements to rescue a crewmate who's been trapped hundreds of feet below the ocean's surface. Alright, so I'm going to start this review off by stating the obvious. A story that takes place underwater, more specifically this deep underwater, is never not going to be terrifying to me. I mean, just thinking about it in a what would I do in this situation kind of way, the answer is probably curl up in a ball and die.
No, don't like that.
The truth is that it takes a special breed of person with balls of steel to do this kind of work. And to me, this movie does an excellent job of portraying just how dangerous and just how scary a situation like this truly is. This movie was about as intense as any movie I've seen in some time. I mean, there was more tension in this movie than your average horror schlock that we get every year. And there's a few reasons for that. The biggest reason is they actually make you give a shit about the characters involved. Now, it's not much, and they don't do it for every character, and as a result, some of these characters do feel a little bit underdeveloped. But for the characters or character that matters, meaning the character that needs to be rescued, they do just enough to make you actually pull for this guy, and that's all you can really ask for in a movie like this.
That makes sense.
Just a handful of moments is all it takes, some with his fiancée, some with his team. It all makes him feel like someone that is easy to root for. And this is why when they place that character in a life or death situation, you can't help but feel anxiety because he actually feels like a real person. This is filmmaking 101. Woody Harrelson is in this movie as well, and listen, Woody is always great. He does play the senior diver in this situation, but I have to be honest, I was kind of surprised at how little he was actually in this movie. There was actually more than a few moments where I completely forgot he was in it. I don't know if his part was cut down in post-production or not, but watching the film, it certainly did feel that way. They did give him his own little backstory about him being forced out, and how he's kind of upset about not being able to do the one job that he loves to do. But I just didn't see him enough, and thus I did not feel his conflict in the way that the film wanted me to.
And I'm in the zone, man. I'm in the fucking zone. Would you relax?
On the contrary, Simu Liu's character, yes, that Simu Liu, was surprisingly a lot more interesting than I thought he would be. Now, they don't give his character much either, but the difference is I think it works for the character that he is playing. He's supposed to be a bit more shut off emotionally and all about his business. And at first he did feel like kind of a dick, but as the movie goes on, he starts to grow on you. I believe that the unsung heroes of this movie are all of the actors that were on the boat, on the surface level, as the main conflict is going on down below. Sure, they're dealing with their own complications, weather, and a malfunctioning ship, just to name a few, but the way that all of these characters interact with each other, and the way that they react to what's going on down below, really helps to sell you on the whole concept of this movie.
You have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
This film had a very natural way of constantly stacking the odds against these characters, to the point where you start to wonder to yourself, how are they ever going to get out of this? As far as the underwater stuff goes, if you weren't already terrified of the abyss as I am, then to me this movie will beat that idea home. There was more than one occasion where I was like, nope, this is exactly why you will never find me down there. There's this one scene where one of the divers is looking for this very important structure under the water, and the camera shows the audience that he's actually very close to it. But it's so dark down there that he himself has no idea how close he actually is. And it just created this feeling of uneasiness and even hopelessness in a very crucial moment in the film. They also implemented the actual use of a countdown clock in this film that was very effective. There's a countdown to the character running out of air, and then there's a count up after the character runs out of air. And both of those are equally as horrifying for very different reasons. And both of those reasons kept me on the edge of my seat throughout the entire course of this film.
Ooh, so exciting, isn't it?
Last Breath very much reminded me of this bygone era of films where the entire focus was on this extreme survival situation, with an entire roster of characters dealing with the main situation, and also dealing with smaller problems that further complicate things. And to me, this is exactly what going to the movies is all about. It's about experiencing these situations without actually having to experience them. To me, this movie has it all. It's got heart, it's got excitement, it's got tragedy, it's got drama. It also clocks in at a brisk 1 hour and 30 minutes, and every moment of that runtime is used effectively. Now, obviously, it's based on a true story, which makes it all the more compelling to think that actual people had to deal with this. Now, did they Hollywood up things a little bit to try to make it a little bit more cinematically appealing? Probably. But what can I say? It worked, and it's never not going to work when you have dedicated filmmakers and talented actors ready to bring these stories to life in the best way possible. To me, Last Breath was a pleasant surprise and more than deserving of a watch, and that's exactly why I'm going to give it the Pleased Palpatine.
Good.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.